Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For those who are new here, I'm Troy and I'm the tech director at One City Church in Chesapeake, Virginia, and one of your certified pros on the Black Bar Discord. Links to both of those in the description below. Today, I'm going to be going through how we set up Ableton Live 10 to use click and backing tracks in our worship sets. First off, we're going to collect some files that we're going to use while we're setting up everything in Ableton. We're going to start with the metronome track. We like using Ableton's default sounds, but we don't like the fact that you can't actually control when Ableton turns on or off its metronome. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in, we're going to find where the original metronome sounds are, and we're going to pull those out to another folder. So let's go in and let's search and find where those are. You see, I've already got a search for Ableton click sound location. And the first thing that pops up is the location of the actual Ableton metronome sounds. So what we're going to do, let's pull up our Windows Explorer. And we're going to go to C, Program Data, Ableton. Live 10 Standard, Resources, Miscellaneous, Metronome, Samples. Did they have to really bury this so deep? All right, here are our two metronome sounds, metronome up and metronome. So let's copy all of these files and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it Ableton Resources. Let's do that again. Make a new folder, call it Metronome, because we're going to be using this a lot. And let's paste these files right there. Now the next thing we're going to be looking for is our guide track. Normally we've got click, we've got a guide that lets our musicians and singers know what's coming up next in the song. So for this, we're going to go back into Chrome and we're going to go to multitracks.com. And the actual URL that you want to go to is multitracks.com/free. This is the page you'll get to. And if you go down to the bottom, you'll see they've got a few free downloads. What you're looking at here is Click and Guide. Fairly small file. About 23 meg. Shouldn't take very long to download. And we're done downloading. So let's go to our downloads folder and find that file. And here we're going to right click on it and we're going to extract it to its own folder. And as soon as it's done, we'll find that folder and see what it gave us. We've got our Click and Guide Samples folder, and they have several different ones. Click tracks we've already taken care of. What we're looking for is the English guides. If you're in another section of the world, they also have French, Portuguese, and Spanish. So we go into the English guides, and they've got two different folders, dynamic cues and song sections. Now the dynamic cues, we don't use much, but we use them every now and then. These are ad-lib, all in, drums in. These are letting people know when their section's coming in. Once again, we don't use them much. Normally we stick with the standard cues of bridge, verse. So let's go back. Here they are in song sections. English female 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are your count-offs. Breakdown, bridge, chorus, pre-chorus, verse. Those are the ones that you normally end up getting in most songs. But once you get them in Ableton, we're going to be putting these into a drum sample pad. So you're going to want them fairly short name. the fact that all of these have English female in the front of them is going to make it difficult to use. So let's change that. So let's open up a Windows PowerShell folder. Let's go to the right drive and the right directory. Now, this is the command you're going to want to use. And once we run it, we'll go back to our file manager, and we'll see that all of our names have English female taken off of them. Now, I did say that we also use some of the dynamic cues, so we're going to take them off there too. Let's go in, select the folder location, go there, and just hit the up arrow a couple of times and rerun the exact same. And you'll see that all the names have been changed. So now let's go back up to the English Guide section. We'll select both of those folders, copy them, go back into our Ableton resources directory, and paste them both back in there. So we have a couple more things that we're going to want to use when we set up Ableton Live. The first is also on multitracks.com. So right here, it's called Pro Presenter Cues. If we download that, which takes no time whatsoever, go into our downloads folder, and you'll see Pro Presenter MIDI Cues.als. That is an Ableton Live set. Let's go ahead and copy that. Create a new folder in our Ableton resources called MIDI. And paste that file in there. Now, the last thing that we want to do when we're setting this up is we want some good pads to begin and end the song with. This will give the band time to get ready in between sets. So for this, we're going to bandcamp.com. I found some great pads called pastor pads. They're designed to be used behind like a response time. So let's go here to pastorpads.bandcamp.com. What we're going to go for is Pastor Pads Piano. And you'll see right here that I own this file already. We've purchased it. And we'll come down and we'll download it. Takes a little while to prepare. You can buy Pastor Pads. I believe these are about $7 each. All right, and it's finished preparing. We'll go ahead and download these. This will take a little bit of time. These are about a gig download. All right, so our pads have almost finished downloading. I made myself some coffee in the meantime. And it looks like we're ready to continue. So let's go into our downloads folder. And there's our pads. Once again, we'll extract those to their own folder and go down and find it and see what we've got. And here's all of our pads. And it looks like, once again, we have a lot of extra stuff at the beginning. So, let's go to PowerShell. And we'll go up. And let's just change a few things on this. Let's change it to MP3, since that's what everything is here. And what we want to get rid of this time is, if you see in the middle of it, there's a section that says Pastor Pads Piano. It's got Pastor Pads before, it's got piano after. We've already got that, so let's get rid of that. Here in PowerShell, at the end of the command, let's replace where it says English Female with Pastor Pads dash piano. We hit enter to remove it, and nothing happened. So let's go to the right directory. And let's try that again. If we go back to our file folder, it's still not quite what I want. I forgot to take out one of the hyphens in there. So let's go ahead and go back to PowerShell. And we'll replace space hyphen with just a single hyphen. Now if we go back to our file folder, we'll see they're exactly the way we want them for when we use them. All right, that's step one. That's getting all of the files that we're going to need collected into one place. After, of course, we copy this folder, go into our Ableton resources, and paste it in place. Now we're ready to open up Ableton and actually get started in the program. All right, now that we've got all our files where we want them to be, let's go ahead and open up Ableton Live. When Ableton comes up, it goes into the session view. We don't want the session view, we want the arrangement view. So we'll hit Tab to go over there. This is the view we're going to be using whenever we set up our worship sets or our individual songs in Ableton Live. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the folder that we just created onto our favorites collections over in the sidebar. So you'll click Add Folder. You'll select the folder that you want, hit Select Folder, and it gets added in. Let's go in there and we see we've got all of our dynamic cues, our metronome, MIDI, the Pastor Pads, and our song selection cues on there. This is where we start setting things up. So let's come over to our categories. We'll select drums, and we'll take a drum rack and bring it over to one of the MIDI sections that's automatically on Ableton Live in the initial setup. We'll come down, and in the bottom section here, you'll see you have a drum rack. This is where we're going to set up our click and our guides. Now this is how I like to set them up. Set this up the way that's comfortable for you to use. But generally I will put the things that we use most often at the top. So I'm going to come up to our Ableton Resources folder. We'll go to Song Sections, and every song you're going to have a count off. So let's start off with those. Drag 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's fast forward through this. Okay, you'll see that as I went through, I selected the ones that we normally use a lot of. Now the ones that we don't use as much, we're still going to put in there. That way, if we need to, they'll be there. But I'm going to put them farther down so that we don't have to look at them whenever we're using all the regular ones. And now that we've got all of those, I'm also going to add in the dynamic cues that, once again, we don't use very often, but I'd like them all to be in one spot. And now finally, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to add in our metronome sound. Now, all we have to do is click the save icon and rename this to MIDI Click Guide. And you'll see now in your user library, under Presets, Instruments, Drum Rack, you now have your new MIDI Click Guide instrument that you can use whenever you set up a song. All right, now let's go ahead and make something useful with those files we just had. Let's go to File, New Live Set. We'll not save that. And we're in Session View again. So let's hit Tab to go to Arrangement View. And now let's drag our MIDI click and guide to the first track. We'll select it, hit Control R to rename it, and name this 4/4 click track. Okay. Now we come down and we double click to create a bar that's a MIDI file. I like to go down here, right click, and click the fixed grid to 1 bar, or excuse me, the fixed grid to 1/4. Now we're going to slide all the way down, and we will do a metronome up, followed by metronome, metronome, metronome. And that's our 4/4 click track. We can use that every time that we create a 4/4 song. We'll do the same thing on the next track. Right click, hit Control R. Let's name that 6/8 click track. Normally, it turns out the only songs that we actually do are either 4/4 or 6/8. Let's rename these actually correct. There we go. And let's create, right click at the top, insert time signature change, make this 6/8. So now when we double click on this bar, right click, make them 1/8 notes, and we'll do a metronome down, up, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 others. And if it turns out that you made yours too long, you can always take these ends and just drag them over to shorten up. And you'll see up here that we now have a track that we can go over and over and over and just insert into any of our songs. So let's take that down to 1 bar. And we have a 4/4 click track and a 6/8 click track. Now the other thing that we're going to do, we're going to drag this to another track. We'll hit Control Shift T to create another MIDI track. We can delete this audio track and this audio track. And we'll drag this down. We'll rename it MIDI Guide. And now all we need to do is drag that guide track into all of our songs, and we can use whatever we want. I double click here, I can go down and I can choose all my standards. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We'll get rid of that because we don't need it. And we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and let's click File. We will save live set as. And we'll go down into our Ableton resources. And we'll name this MIDI Click Guide. When we go in, we can easily come in. We can select either our 4/4 click track to bring into a new project. We can select our 6/8 click track to bring into a new project. Or we can select our guide to bring in whenever we set up new songs. So let's go ahead and let's clear all of this out again. We'll go to a new live set. We will not save our changes. And we're in session view, which is actually where we want to be for this next section. All right, and now that we've got our clicking guide, let's go ahead and do one final piece of the puzzle. When you set up Ableton, each individual song, you're going to want to be able to change your tempo easily. So when you go from your first song, which could be at 80 BPM, to your second, which could be 64, you can go through and you can come up here. You can go to your tempo. You can change your tempo, but it's a little difficult to set up. So the easiest way to do this is to set up a tempo track. Let's go into File. We'll do a new live set. And we're only going to want these 2 audio tracks. So we can go ahead and right click and delete the 2 MIDI tracks in here. We're going to take the first one and we're going to set audio from as no input. Now we're going to set the second track audio from to your first track. So basically we're going to be creating a dummy track that has a blank sound in it. We're going to set that to record. And let's go ahead and start it. And we want about a measure. Click it again to stop. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to copy that and hit Tab. Go into Arrangement View. Go ahead and stop that. Get rid of our Return to Session View button. And let's go ahead and let's paste that track right in here. When we double click on it, we see that we've got our segment BPM and we can set it as leader. That's going to make it so it doesn't follow Ableton's master tempo. And now if we click off of it and click back on, we can change our segment BPM. So let's go ahead and change that to 80 BPM. And you may need to change from leader to follower and back to leader again until you see up here that this little red dot is on your beats per minute in your top bar that shows that that's your master tempo now. We can stretch this out, run, and we see we're at 80 BPM. Just to make sure this works, let's go ahead and stop it. Copy it, paste it, and let's change the tempo on this second one to 120. Paste it again, and change it on this third one to 90. And if you watch, you'll see up here your tempo is changing. Every now and then, tempo tracks can be a little funky if you change the tempo in them. If you have problems with them, just remember, always switch it from leader to follower and back to leader, and all your automation will kick back in. So let's go back to the beginning. And let's go ahead and start, and keep an eye up here on your BPM. We start, it's at 80 BPM for a few measures. And now it switches to 120. And then it's going to switch back to 90. So that's working. All right, let's go ahead. Let's delete these other two. We'll delete this second track. Bring this down to, we'll come down here. We'll take it down to a single measure. Take it to a single measure here. And we're going to go ahead and save this set under Resources. As Tempo Project. And that's going to be it for everything we need before we actually set up any songs or any worship sets in Ableton Live. That's all for this tutorial on getting everything ready for using Ableton Live 10 in your worship ministry. In our next video, we'll be using these foundations to set up a song that we've downloaded from multitracks.com to get ready to use in our Sunday service. I hope you found value in this tutorial for using Ableton Live in your worship ministry. If you have, be sure to smash that like button below, and also consider subscribing to the channel and click that bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video. Until then, keep working for excellence in your ministry, and I'll see you over in the Black Bar Discord.